we had exhausted all of our traditional tools in our toolbox. We didn't have any new doors to open. Shit, what else can we do? At a certain point, you have to look outside the box.
The Collier County Sheriff's Office, under the direction of Sheriff Kevin Rambosk, presents Sworn Statement, a podcast covering local cases and public safety issues, all unfolding right here in Southwest Florida.
And then the great idea for the podcast came up. It's not something that I'm aware that we have done before.
Let's say you wanted to disappear tomorrow. What would you do? Well, for starters, you'd ditch your cell phone. Everything from your name to your location and bank accounts are tied to it. And you'd want to get rid of your social media accounts too.
I know that true crime is a huge genre. Let's try to reach out to that community to try to kind of put the pieces together.
The first 3 episodes of this podcast will focus on the mystery of the deceased hiker known as Mostly Harmless. If I wanted to disappear tomorrow, it would be impossible. I cannot scrub the internet of my likeness.
He was such a mystery. And I think that that was something that kind of piqued everyone's interest.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Latte and Tea Mystery. In this video, we'll be continuing the story of the hiker they called Mostly Harmless, as law enforcement and online sleuths dig deeper in his life. More secrets unravel about Vance Rodriguez's life before taking on the Appalachian trails. Let's continue on the journey of discovering what possibly led to his decisions.
I identify as a member of the true crime community. The outdoor world, is just, to me, it's home, you know? There is a commitment in the outdoor world. We take care of each other. We're not going to leave each other behind. If someone gets hurt, you get them out. And I think that played a big factor in how I felt about this case. This was a member of my community. This was an outdoor person, and I had to take care of him. I don't know anything about sleuthing cases. I didn't think I was a person who could do that. But I had been home with COVID and not sure what to do with myself. And I started digging further on Google, and that's how I ended up finding the Facebook group. So I joined the group, and it was chaos.
Oh yeah, the time traveler.
Someone thought he may have been an alien. Another person thought he may have been a ghost, like an actual reincarnated ghost that was walking the earth.
I remember one woman saw a picture of him standing in front of those billboards. He's standing too close to it, so she decided he couldn't see. And he couldn't find the food in his tent.
Yeah, this is kind of dumb.
Sometimes the leads weren't actionable, and though they believed in them very strongly.
So I read an account by a hiker named Brandon Dowell who met Mostly Harmless in Georgia.
I think there's a lot of hurt people on the trail.
Don't rush me.
Everybody's rushing. I first started going to the trail when I was 17. I was just dealing with so much anger, and I felt it would solve my problems to kind of pack up and just go hike and restart and maybe not come back. The trip where I met Denham, I wanted to go out for a couple days. I got to Amicalola. I hiked out that morning and ended up at Springer Mountain Shelter. Maybe an hour or two after I got there, I see this scraggly man walking up, and I'm like, oh gosh, he looks like he's been out for a long time. I was glad to see him because, you just want someone to talk to, hang out, have some friends around the fire with you. Because I didn't have a lot of friends in school. And we talked about a lot of things over dinner. It was a lot of sci-fi girls and childhood. He told me, I just went through a breakup not too long ago. It seemed like it was fresh in his mind, to mention one specific breakup. As the night continued, things did get deeper. We talked more about childhood. The only story in particular that I remember is his dad took him out into the yard one day and tried to fight him. I remember him telling me that he just walked away. It seems like he wanted to get away from them, I understood. When I was 3, my stepdad, Rob, came into the picture. He immediately just began this campaign of terror in the household. Denham. He had been there. Same place. To connect with somebody on that level was really special. And we had breakfast together the next morning. I just remember he ate a lot. He ate and ate and ate. We packed up and we walked to the junction of the Appalachian Trail and the Benton MacKay Trail. And I asked him if he was sure that, he didn't want to keep in touch. And he just kind of looked at me real sad and shook his head no. And we shook hands and that was it. We parted ways.
And it was about maybe a year when no one had come forward.
He's broken up with his girlfriend and he was abused by his father. A lot of people started speculating then, because of the history of abuse, that he may not have family looking for him. So if no one is looking for Mostly Harmless, the hikers were the only people we knew that actually had talked to this person. And I became obsessed with finding new hikers and talking to new hikers. But I was immediately told by Christy Harris that that was not something I could do.
I had decided that the hikers were pretty much useless.
Everything had to be done through Christy. Posts had to be Christy approved. Searches had to be Christy approved. If you want to submit something to Collier County Sheriff's Office, guess who you have to tell you're going to do that?
Sometimes you have to be the hammer and, frankly, not be nice to get stuff done.
She sent me a message and said, you should go fuck yourself. I've already heard from people that say they don't like you.
I was trying, in my opinion, to keep order. I can't get the job done of what I want to do if I've got blah, 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 Natasha's doing this, blah, 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 Summer's doing this.
The atmosphere was hostile.
I felt like I was a babysitter, a referee, and in some cases, a punching bag. I was told I was stupid. I was told I was an idiot. That's the red line for me. I hated being treated like I was nothing. And I just said, I've had enough of this.
Start to get, days of our lives like that. I move on.
Christy quits, and the group is a burning dumpster fire at this point. So I messaged the woman who had started the group and said, your group doesn't have a moderator. You might want to get one so that it can actually function. And she responded back that the group could then pick who was going to be the next moderator. Within 2 days, I was the moderator because the group had selected me to be the moderator. I wasn't listened to as much. My ideas were passed over more. And I came to find out that all women's pay at that company was suppressed. Men were making $5 more an hour. I had been feeling greatly underappreciated. So when I first joined the group, I felt like this was the opportunity to try something new. Let's get organized. What's been done, what hasn't been done. Let's create an album, not just a scattering of photos throughout the group, that is all of our people who we still need to talk to. That was the moment that I realized no one has talked to Mike Gormley.
My name is Mike Gormley.
Sides face your partner.
My trail name is Waterboy.
Grand square, 1, 2, 3, turn, and a 1, 2, 3.
Supposedly, I was the last hiker to see mostly harmless before he was found.
Promenader there.
Around April 13th or so is the day I ran into him. It was like 85 degrees out that day. I just decided it was best that I get off the trail.
So, when it comes to camping and hiking, small handsaws are light, effective at turning small branches and trunks into firewood, and generally faster to use than an axe. They are also much safer than axes and hatchets, especially around groups of fellow campers, children, and dogs. That's why these are a great idea. This Japanese pull saw retractable blade is a 0.5 millimeters thick carbon tool steel blade for strength and durability and extra flexibility. A ratchet lock wheel secures blade position firmly. It features a stainless steel blade, acetone-resistant handle, and very portable, versatile lanyard for cutting branches, firewood, and other camp-in needs. It comes in olive and sand color, so guys, visit the Amazon links below. Created by OLFA Corporation with almost 70 years of history and devotion to providing high-quality knives and blades. Yoshio Okada invented the world's first snap-off blade cutter utility knife. He also invented the world's first rotary cutter. It revolutionized how people cut fabric. They're committed to making tools that improve how people cut materials, also practical to use and made with traditional Japanese craftsmanship.
I got to the roadway, took the chance and stuck out my thumb and tried to hitch a ride, and this guy stopped in a pickup truck. We were driving along, and all of a sudden he saw someone along the roadside. He says, "Well, there's a hiker right there. You want to go back and talk to him, chat a little?" And I said, "Sure."
And here's my first picture that I took when I met Mostly Harmless. I noticed his cheeks are quite pudgy, like he's well fed.
When I observed that his pack was awful large, I says, "Well, what do you got in there that weighs so much?" He says, "Well, I got winter clothes in there." And I'm thinking, mid-April in Florida, you're not going to need winter clothes anymore. I said, "Just give me your winter clothes. I can send them back for you." And he declined. He says, "Oh, I'll just keep them a little bit longer," which seemed a little bit strange to me. When we were talking, as he wanted to know if there was any campsites up ahead.
And this is the view at Noble's campsite.
The campsite that I mentioned to him is where they found him some 2.5 months later. When I realized that maybe he had just only hiked 5 miles further and that was the end of his hike for 2.5 months, was it foul play or just what was it,
People started to wonder, how could you go from being this person to the person in the tent who is completely skeletal?
He had food with him. We were unable to determine if it was an intentional act on his part not to eat.
I would say if he was planning on keeping his winter clothes, that he was not planning on dying.
Maybe a snake bite. Did somebody harm him?
I didn't know. I didn't have a theory that made sense.
But the sheriff's office said, we don't suspect foul play.
Most people don't just lay down in a tent and die,
I've always felt like an underdog. Everything I have in life, I have fought, kicked, punched, and scratched my way to. When I can, I jump into the world of true crime to escape from everything else. I couldn't deal with the fact of him sitting in a basement, waiting for someone to identify him in some way. It didn't sit right with me. I decided that I'm just going to open my own group and go for it. A few people came with me from Natasha's group, but with the new group, I had more power, more control. The group was also smaller. And then we had someone in the group file the FOIA request. to get the case file. I got it all at once. I got the case file and the autopsy report and the autopsy photos. I was horrified the first time I saw them. It looked like a bag of bones with skin over it. On the first flyer that the Collier County Sheriff put out, it included what they called a small scar on his abdomen. But then I saw the picture with the autopsy report, and I'm going, what in the world? That was the understatement of the century.
Small abdominal scar. Yeah, it's not a small abdominal scar at all. People started saying like there had to have been a significant surgery. And there was this belief that he has cancer. Cancer's never mentioned in the autopsy, so that leaves it wide open. So people did searches for Appalachian Trail and cancer and found this blog. This blog was about hiking the Appalachian Trail because of a cancer diagnosis.
It was, okay, I'm sick, I'm taking control of my life, and I'm going out on my own terms.
The only picture on the blog is the back of a body. And the blog does just randomly end. People then circled back around on the fact that Ben Billamy was the name used in the youth hostel. Everyone assumed this Ben Billamy could be Ben Reynolds, using Ben Billamy as an alias.
I saw that blog and I'm like, that's him. But there are a few rules to sleuthing. You never, ever go real life. With Ben Reynolds, other people really went real life.
My name is Bill Powell, aka Ben Reynolds. I am still alive. In 2012, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I hit the trail, got back, and then all this starts. January of 2020, a bunch of years later, I started getting messages. Do you know Mostly Harmless? Are you mostly harmless? Are you dead? The inbox started filling up. The social profiles started filling up. I was getting messages, emails all week long, weekends, asking me, how can you prove you're not this dead guy? Things get crazier and crazier. By June of 2020, it was 887 people. That's when I really dove headfirst into it. I'm going to have to get real deep and proactive and take it to these groups and say, look, I'm Ben Reynolds. This is my story. Stop it. That I'd have to go in and, debunk it all, admonish everyone that tried to do this, explain that I'm alive. This admin says, how do I know that you're Ben Reynolds? Despite me telling them that I'm not dead, they would tell me, well, we can't rule you out. Things get crazier and crazier. It was like, oh, here's a picture from the blog and deconstructing my body language and, looking for the types of cancer and extrapolating that to the body position of Mostly Harmless in the tent. People wouldn't take my word for it because my name said Bill Powell. And so splinter groups formed that dove into the Ben Reynolds mythos, and they posted this picture of a Ben Reynolds in Australia. And they started going down the path of harassing this guy. Anything can happen with the internet and sleuths, anything, and they're crazy. Finally, I posted to Natasha's group and said, this is what I go through on a daily basis.
When I finally met Bill, his life had been turned upside down for a long time. I would shut that shit down so fast.
There are people on the other end of these investigations. This is not a competition. It is not a reality show.
the online sleuth groups. They get caught up in the romance of it, the mystery of it. They get very gunman on the grassy knoll. We didn't want to open more possibilities on why he died or how he died. We wanted to narrow our focus to identify who he is.
I'm David Middleman, CEO of Othram.
I'm Kristen Middleman. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Othram.
DNA is pretty much all we've ever done. My wife is a biochemist by training, a little bit different than the genetics background I have. This case was really unique in that there was a lot of attention drawn to the case. There was an online Facebook group with thousands of folks that were working on it. If you just wanted to look at a bunch of DNA, it looks a lot like this. And these are basically the positions along what's called the human reference sequence. You can cluster them using principal component analysis and figure out...
Wait, you go back? Can you say that in like dumbest way possible?
All right, sure. There's 3 billion positions that describe your DNA.
Traditional forensic testing right now that the police use to identify people looks at 10 markers in someone's DNA. The sequencing that we do here at Othram looks at tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of markers.
The technology that Othram is using is new. The ideas are new. They look for similarities between the DNA you have stored and the person you found, and you can say, oh, his DNA is pretty close to people from this region, or it's pretty close to this family. And so you don't get a precise match, you get a clue.
When we got a hold of law enforcement, we offered to develop a DNA profile to get a few more clues about who this person might have been.
Othram is private. My understanding, this particular DNA profile testing would cost $5,000.
We thought it over, and we figured there's enough people that are really interested in who this guy was and in trying to help him get back to family. I think it's a little unorthodox to recommend crowdfunding a case, but we threw it out there.
And I gave it a sounding yes. You want us to fundraise for this? We can do that. Like, that's something tangible we can do.
It ain't my money, and it's a tool I can use to solve a crime. It's worth it.
Alright guys, we'll be continuing the video next week. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for the last part of the story.